and welcome to another episode of PLA with myself, Nick, and Bruno. And we've got two questions today, and the first question is for yourself, Bruno. And this one is building on from last week's episodes dealing with mandates. Today's question goes on and says, if another agency takes over a mandate from our agency, are we required to hand over all the documents to them? Now, this agent says that she thought that the POPIA Act would prevent me from being forced to hand over all the tenants' contracts, copies of IDs and credit health records to the new agent. Shouldn't they obtain consent from the tenants themselves to get information directly from the tenants? Surely the tenants signed a consent with me and not the new agency via me. Please advise them, Bruno, as an agent is now forcing me to hand over everything I have on my tenants to her. I only want to give her a list of names of the tenants who reside in the property she is taking over. And I told her to obtain new contracts and new credit records, and she insists that I hand over all my figure documents to her. Bruno?
So this is one of those questions related to the managed rental mandates, right? So it's specifically for leasing agents, obviously, and their relationship with the landlord. So this obviously means that you and the landlord have an agreement with each other that you act on the landlord's behalf to manage the property, manage the tenants, make sure that things get done, that if there's anything wrong on the property, that it gets reported to the landlord. So remember the basic or fundamental relationship between landlord and leasing agent is that of agent. And in our law, agent basically means that you act as a representative of the landlord. So strictly speaking, when you engage a tenant and you procure a tenant or you manage the relationship between the landlord and the tenant, forget your commission. So let's put commission aside for a moment, because often it's a question of, well, the landlords aren't allowed to do it because I'm entitled to commission. This is if a mandate is cancelled midway or whatever the case is. That's a very common question that we get. But if you put commission aside, we start speaking about authority to act. And the reality is it's the landlord's property. And more often than not, your mandate doesn't have a stipulation there that only you are authorized to act. You're entitled to claim money if there's a breach of a mandate, but the reality is your representation of the landlord can be ended at any time if the landlord so wishes, provided that you get properly compensated for any breach. This means that relationship can be carried over to somebody else. So he approaches another agent to act on their behalf. When you do the credit vetting, as an example, you're doing it for the landlord, not for yourself, right? You're performing a function or a job on the landlord's behalf. So the consent is normally landlord-driven, tenancy-driven. It's done for the purposes of that specific tenant's continued tenancy over tenancy over the property or continued tenancy over the property, which basically means that if a new person now acts as the landlord, because imagine if it was the landlord directly, there might not be that much of an issue to hand over the documents. But now it's a landlord's agent, same thing. Landlord's agent is entitled to it, and provided that they use the documents under the same scope of authority that the landlord would use those documents. Basically meaning, provided that it has to do with their tenancy or continued tenancy, there's no reason why the landlord or the landlord's new agent cannot use those documents. Yes, if for some reason that information is used for any other purposes, then it's a problem. If you want to cover yourself as an example, for example, maybe notify the tenant that this is the new agent and that obviously these documents have to go to the new agent firstly. And you can even go so far as to have a disclaimer with the new agent, or don't hand it to the new agent, give it to the landlord and make it their problem and say, landlord doesn't want to use me anymore. My mandate was for him. I acted for him. I'm giving the information to him. Whatever he does with it now is going to be his problem. My hands are clean. You can tell the tenant this, you can tell the landlord this, you can tell the new agent this. That might be a suitable solution if you're wary about POPIA and privacy of any privacy of information.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bruno. Nice, clear, and precise, and to the point with that one. And then that we've got